Emma Rivera had mastered the art of going unnoticed in a city that never slowed down. She didn't wear designer clothes or carry herself like someone born into privilege. Each morning, she left her tiny fourth-floor apartment, no elevator, and walked to the second-hand bookstore where she worked. Each evening, she rushed to her public university, where she studied literature on a scholarship for working students. Her world was made of worn paperbacks, watered-down coffee, and humble dreams, like someday saving enough to buy a poetry collection by Neruda that she often admired behind the glass of an upscale bookstore. She didn't complain, she didn't envy, she had grown used to living quietly, living kindly, and believing that small things could still make a difference. Then came that afternoon, a biting wind slicing through the city's narrow streets, as Emma stood frozen in front of the bookstore window. Inside, the books were displayed like luxury jewels, distant and unreachable. Her breath escaped in a soft cloud, and for a moment she forgot the world around her, until a frail voice behind her broke the silence. "Please help me." Emma turned around. The old woman, small in stature, hair the color of ash, her face etched with the lines of a long life, was struggling to balance two nearly torn grocery bags. An orange rolled onto the sidewalk, bouncing toward a storm drain. Emma didn't hesitate. Her legs moved before her thoughts caught up. She caught the bag just as it threatened to collapse and gently grasped the woman's arm. "Let me help you," she said softly, her voice light as a breeze. The woman stared at her, as if unsure she was real. "Are you an angel, dear?" Her trembling hand gripped Emma's, as though it were the only anchor she had in the midst of an invisible storm. "No one stopped," she murmured, eyes red. Perhaps from the biting wind, or perhaps from the indifference that surrounded her. Emma held her hand a little tighter, saying nothing. Her kindness didn't need recognition, only timing. "My home is across the plaza," the old woman whispered, pointing down the street. "But my legs aren't what they used to be, and this cold." Emma looked around. The longer route would be hard and the wind was cutting like knives. Then she remembered a shortcut. Through the Royal & Co. boutique, a path people sometimes took to escape storms or heavy snow. "Let's go that way, ma'am. Through the shop?" "It'll be warmer." The old woman gave a weak nod. Emma gently supported her, guiding each slow step toward the store's golden-arched entrance beneath gleaming glass. She had no idea that this simple decision, made purely from kindness, was about to alter the course of her life. The automatic glass doors opened. Warm air rushed out, laced with the scent of luxury perfumes. Emma dipped her head slightly, as if quietly asking permission from the world of polished elegance. One step, then another, and then they were stopped. "Stop." The voice cracked like a whip. A tall man in a black security uniform stepped directly in their path. "This is a private entrance, for customers only." Emma tightened her grip on the old woman's arm. "We're just passing through, sir. She needs to get across the plaza. This is the closest and most sheltered route." "Not my concern," he shrugged, his eyes flicking over Emma's worn-out coat and the faded wool dress the woman wore. "This place isn't for your kind." The words hit like a slap. The elderly woman trembled, clutching Emma's arm tighter. A group of women stepped out from inside the boutique, their heels clacking sharply on the marble floor. Designer coats, luxury handbags, and sneering smiles, as if the entire world was their runway. "What's going on here?" one of them asked, pretending to be curious while her eyes danced with mockery. "She's trying to walk this old lady through the main entrance," the guard explained, as though he had just prevented a felony. The woman burst out laughing. "How sweet! Are you turning Royal & Co. into a homeless shelter?" Laughter spread like poison. Another woman raised her phone. "Oh, get this on video, Cinderella," and her ragged fairy godmother, Urban Edition, totally viral. Emma stood still, her face burning. She heard the laughter, the whispers, the camera flashes, every gaze a silent slap. But she didn't flinch. She didn't cry. Because the trembling woman beside her still needed someone to stay upright. A low engine hum echoed from down the street. A sleek black car pulled up silently to the curb, its tires halting just at the edge as the door eased open. The man who stepped out wore a tailored black overcoat. It wasn't the clothing that silenced the crowd. It was the way he walked, calm, deliberate, and with an air that commanded silence. "What's going on here?" His voice was deep and measured, not loud, yet it cut through the air like a bell in fog. Emma turned. The man was looking directly at her. Not the old woman, not the well-dressed crowd, but her. "Mr. Hale," the guard stammered, stepping back. The face that had been smug moments ago had gone ashen. "What exactly are you doing?" "I was just stopping them." "They're not customers." "So people who aren't customers aren't allowed on public sidewalks?" His tone remained calm, but his steely gray eyes sliced through pretense like a knife. The laughing woman from earlier now looked down. Phones vanished into handbags like magic. One opened her mouth to speak, but he raised a hand, and silence followed. He stepped toward Emma, his gaze softening. "I'm Nathan Hale," he said, "and I apologize for how my staff treated you." Then to the old woman, "Ma'am, may I offer you and this young lady a ride? I'll see you both home safely." Emma didn't know why, but for the first time in what felt like hours of silent humiliation, she felt seen. Inside the luxury car, everything was unusually quiet. No music, no idle small talk, only the soft hum of the heater and the subtle scent of fine leather. Emma sat upright, hands folded in her lap, as if afraid of staining the space. Her eyes drifted to the reflective window, where her own image, frizzy hair, worn coat, looked misplaced among such refinement. "I like people who read," Nathan said, suddenly, breaking the silence. "When you said, 'she needs help,' I saw something familiar in you." Emma looked up, hesitant. "I work at an old bookstore," she said, "and I study literature at night." Nathan gave a small nod. "My wife, Alina, she used to be a writer." The car fell into a beat of silence again. "I have a library, one she left behind," he said slowly. "It's been untouched since she left. But maybe it's time someone like you gave it life again." The library was on the second floor of the Hale estate, a long room with vaulted wooden ceilings and stained glass windows that filtered light like morning mist. Emma stepped inside for the first time and felt as though she had entered another world, quiet, timeless, and full of unsaid words. Books were arranged by color, by genre, by memory. A crystal vase near the window still held a dried lavender stem, long past bloom. "She used to read here in the afternoons," Nathan said from behind her, his voice soft as air. "On rainy days, she said the books whispered louder." Emma didn't reply. She ran her fingers along the spines, aged leather, faded silk, gold embossed titles worn thin. Tucked between the pages of one book, she found a dried daisy. "Do you really want me to reorganize this place?" Nathan nodded. "No one's touched it in 3 years. But when I saw how you looked at that old woman, I thought, maybe Elena would have looked at her the same way." Emma didn't know what to say. Something stirred quietly inside her, like the library was whispering back, inviting her to finish a story left unwritten. The rain came suddenly that late afternoon, wind howling through the windows as the sky darkened. Nathan appeared in the library doorway, his coat replaced by a crisp white shirt and dark slacks, holding a steaming mug of tea. "Looks like a storm's coming. Stay," he said. "The library doesn't like being alone during thunderstorms." Emma smiled softly, hesitated a moment, then nodded. They sat near the old fireplace, the flames casting golden and orange flickers across the wooden ceiling. Nathan pulled out a leather-bound notebook and handed it to her. "It was Elena's," he said, "her journal." Emma turned a few pages. The handwriting was delicate and graceful. One note stood out. "If one day I'm no longer here, let the library keep loving. Maybe someone will walk in and bring the light back." She looked up, her eyes meeting Nathan's sister's. Gentle, but carrying an ache not yet healed. "You still love her?" "Always," he whispered, "but loving someone doesn't mean the heart stops beating for what's new." That silence lingered, thick with meaning, and then, softly as a breeze, their lips met. Not rushed, not dramatic, just a truth being quietly acknowledged. Rumors spread like wildfire. Someone had filmed Nathan helping Emma and the old woman out of Royal & Co., and social media began to buzz. Year of Hale Enterprises dating the bookstore girl? A stunt of kindness? Or strategic seduction? Tabloid headline, from sidewalk to estate. Who is Emma Rivera really? Emma read the words while shelving books at the old shop, her hands trembling. She didn't regret helping the elderly woman, but the twisting of her actions, the public dissection of her worth, made it hard to breathe. It all peaked that morning in a small salon near her apartment. As she waited quietly for her turn, the bell above the door jingled. Vanessa Langford walked in, the same woman who had mocked her outside the store, moving like the room was her runway. "Oh," she said loud enough for everyone to hear. "If it isn't our little Cinderella. How's life in the castle, darling?" No cameras needed. Sometimes a single smile was enough to shred your dignity. "You really think you can say that about someone just because she's better than you?" The voice came from behind, calm, cold, unmistakable. Vanessa turned. So did everyone else in the salon. Nathan Hale stood there, dressed in a simple white shirt, yet carrying the presence of someone who owned the entire room. "Nathan," she stammered. "Go on," he said, walking over to Emma. "I'd love to hear why someone's kindness offends you so deeply." Vanessa swallowed hard. The rest of the room lowered their eyes. No more giggles. No more whispers. Nathan looked at Emma. No theatrics, no grand speeches. He simply said, softly but loud enough for everyone to hear, "She's the most extraordinary woman I've ever met." Then he turned to the salon, his gaze sharp as a blade. "Any rumor, any insult thrown at her, from now on, consider it an insult to me." That evening, back in the library where it all began, Emma sat surrounded by books, the warm light casting a soft glow over her face. "Maybe," she said slowly, "instead of proving I'm not what they say, I should do something that makes them hear the real story." Nathan sat across from her, his expression softening. "What are you thinking?" "Let's bring this library back to life," she answered. "Not just a place for storing books, but a space where voiceless kids get to write their own stories." He was quiet for a long moment, then smiled. The kind of smile Emma was starting to recognize as his most genuine. "How do you want to begin?" "A writing class for kids in foster care," she said, "and reading with them, teaching them that words have power, and kindness does too." Nathan nodded, his eyes reflecting more than agreement. They reflected belief. A week later, the library echoed with laughter, colorful cushions scattered across the wooden floor, open books waiting patiently for tiny hands to turn their pages. Children from foster homes had arrived, some shy, some brimming with excitement. Emma stood at the front, her voice soft but firm. "Today, we're not just reading stories. We're starting to write our own." From the front row, Mrs. Green beamed. Emma had invited her to read the opening story as a tribute to the woman who had started it all. Her voice was slow and warm, telling the tale of an orphaned boy who found hope through words. A little girl with braided hair near the door raised her hand. "Miss Emma, can we write our own stories too?" Emma walked over, knelt beside her, eyes shining. "Not only can you, but I want you to. And if you want, we'll publish it. For real." Nathan stood at the back, his gaze following each spark in the children's eyes. Every tiny hand gripping a pencil, every smile beginning to bloom. And in his heart, one truth settled. Every page written from this place was a victory for kindness. That afternoon, the garden behind the Hale estate glowed under the golden hue of sunset. Gardenias, Elena's favorite, bloomed beside the wild daisies Emma had planted. The scent in the breeze was both familiar and new. At the heart of the garden stood a small outdoor library, oak and glass, filled with books, soft pillows, and living dreams. On a little pedestal in the reading space, a red leather journal lay open, the one Emma had written in since her first day in the library. Nathan held her hand, his eyes solemn but warm. "I wasn't looking for someone to replace Elena," he said. "I was looking for someone to walk with me, not behind, not ahead, but beside." From his pocket, he pulled out a simple silver ring. "Emma Rivera, you've brought back something I thought I had lost forever, life. Would you," he bowed slightly, "keep writing this story with me?" Emma didn't answer right away. She looked at the ring in Nathan's hand, not for its shine, but because it was so simple, so right. Right for her. For him. For everything they'd been through. "I used to be afraid," she said, her voice soft enough that even the wind quieted to listen. "Afraid that I wouldn't be enough, not good enough, strong enough, or worthy enough to be part of your world." Nathan gently squeezed her hand. "Emma, you didn't step into my world. You opened a new one I never knew I needed." She laughed. A quiet laugh, but full of warmth. "I don't know if I'll ever be perfect for you, but I do know this. I'll choose to write this story every day, one line at a time." And then she nodded. Not a hesitant nod, not a teary one, but the nod of someone who knew she was stepping into a new chapter. Not a fairy tale, but something real. A living story, with sweat, tears, and so much hope. Nathan slid the ring onto her finger. No fireworks, no music, just the sound of two hearts in sync. "Thank you," he whispered, "for believing in something the world's forgotten, that kindness is a kind of power." Seasons passed, but some feelings only deepened. When the first blossoms of spring returned to the garden, so did Emma and Nathan, with a different purpose. Just the people who truly understood what love meant. The children from the program, Mrs. Green, and a few close friends. Emma wore a simple white dress, hand-sewn by a woman from the foster home, a girl who once wrote a fairy tale about an orphaned seamstress. Nathan looked at her as if every moment before had simply led to this one. In her vows, Emma didn't promise forever. She promised to choose Nathan every day, like choosing the right words on a page. Nathan didn't promise to shield her from storms, but to sit beside her, reading through the rain. A year later, the outdoor library had become a second home to dozens of children. Their stories were printed into real books, featured in an exhibit called Whispers of Hope. Children laughed in the open-air library, running around low bookshelves with eyes that sparkled like stars. Their stories had been printed into little books, placed proudly next to the literary classics. Emma stood beneath the gardenia trellis, her hand in Nathan's. A breeze swept through the open pages, as if memories were whispering between the lines. "Do you remember?" she said softly. "This all started with a grocery bag about to fall." Nathan smiled, not with the bag, but with the woman who bent down to pick it up. In the distance, Mrs. Green sat on a bench beside a little girl who was rereading her very own story. Her gaze was full of peace, like everything she had waited for had finally blossomed into a garden. "We're not writing fairy tales," Emma whispered. "We're writing truth, about kindness, about choices, about a place where every story deserves to be heard." Near the library's edge, Elena's old wind chime danced in the breeze, a whisper from the past, now woven gently into the future. And at that very moment, a new page turned, amid laughter, soft wind, and the scent of blooming flowers.